Welcome to the English Epics channel. I was surprised when Barney, an old acquaintance from university, called me and said he was working on a temporary project in my hometown. He suggested meeting up for a drink that I was stunned when he casually mentioned that he had been sleeping with my wife for the past 2 weeks. You have until I finish my pint to run this fast and as far as you can. But make no mistake, I will catch you and you won't like what happens when I do. Barney swallowed hard, but to his credit, he didn't move an inch. I'm here to apologize because I didn't know she was your wife. I would never have done this willingly to an old friend. She told me she was divorced and just looking for some fun. An old friend. Honestly, even before this revelation, Barney wasn't exactly my friend. We were roommates during our freshman year of university, so we had to live together. I studied information technology, was into chemistry, and the rest of the guys were studying English. After freshman year, he was always hanging around with us, but more on the periphery. He was ordinary enough, but there was always a certain tension about him that I didn't like. He would stare at me too intently, sometimes for too long, and it made me uneasy that we hung out together, and at one point the whole group went on a vacation to celebrate graduating from university. I drew the short straw and ended up sharing a room with Barney. I don't remember much from that trip except that I had the worst hangover of my life and had to spend a couple of days in bed just to recover. The table fell silent. I gripped my glass tighter, while Barney grew paler by the second but didn't move an inch. I don't believe you. Stephanie would never do that to me, especially with you. She's been loyal to me since the day we got married. Oh, by the way, thanks for the wedding invitation. I only invited my friends. The whole crew? Except me? So that's what this is about? Who, you made up this lie about my wife out of spite because you're still angry I didn't invite you to my wedding 6 years ago. I haven't seen you in 10 years, you miserable bastard. Well, maybe none of this would have happened if you had invited me. I would have recognized her right away. With those words, he handed me his phone and showed me a naked picture of Stephanie. She was posing for the camera in lingerie I didn't recognize, smiling widely at the lens. He swiped through the photos, showing me more of them together with her beaming at the camera. The last photo he showed me was of him pleasuring her. We always had. A great sex life. I never neglected her and she never neglected me. That's why it was so hard for me to believe this. I loved her so much. She was my everything and I knew I was hers. No, I believed in Stephanie. I believed in us too much to fall for this trick. Nice try, Barney, you almost fooled me. Very impressive, an elaborate fake, I'll give you that, but I still don't believe you. I know Stephanie and I trust her. I know she would never do something like this. All right, I'll prove it to you. Tell her you're staying late at work. I know you sometimes have to work late, or Steph wouldn't be able to meet up with me. I flinched when he called her Steph. She can't stand it when anyone shortens her name. I tried it once and never made that mistake again. I should have punched him while I had the chance, but instead, I decided to do what he asked, if only to get him to shut up long enough for me to kill him. After I spoke with Stephanie, Barney took the phone and said, "Hi, Steph. When can we see each other again?" "Tonight? I'll be there in 15 minutes. Don't forget to give Humphrey one of those pills I put in your cheese. You know how much he hates me. If you give it to him now, he'll be asleep by the time I get there. You'd better be lying, you bastard. If you've touched Stephanie or drugged my dog, you'll wish you were never born." I didn't know, did I? That's the whole point. I'm just trying to prove what Stephanie is really like because you don't believe me. Sorry. I had no idea she was someone's wife, let alone yours. Sorry, man, but you deserve better. As for the dog, Humphrey will be fine. For some reason, he just doesn't like me and does nothing but bark and growl whenever he sees me. Well, at least, unlike some, he's loyal to me. That pill won't hurt him, it'll just help him take a peaceful nap. Do you believe me now? Barney said, sipping his drink. Give me 15 minutes, and then head back home. I'll make sure we don't take things too far. I can't do this to you now that you know the truth. I'm just trying to save you from that lying cow. How noble of you, I muttered sarcastically. He left quickly, and I sat there in a daze. Of course he must be lying. Then it hit me, maybe this is all part of some elaborate prank set up by the guys. They roped Barney into it, and he was so desperate to get back into the group after all these years that he agreed to anything. That must be it. It wouldn't surprise me if they all jumped out when I got home. That's why Barney said he wouldn't go too far tonight. Because he couldn't. Stephanie wouldn't agree to take things too far just for the sake of a prank. Those bastards almost convinced me. Feeling a bit happier, I finished my pint and headed home. I crept to the back door, expecting everyone to jump out and surprise me. Humphrey was suspiciously quiet in his basket. A sense of unease crept over me again. I stepped into the hallway. Music was playing, but there were no other sounds. I walked into the living room, and there, In front of the fireplace stood Barney, his pants around his ankles, receiving Stephanie's affections. She was startled by the sound of the antique corset passed down from her grandmother, smashing the mirror above the fireplace. In her shock, she bit down on Barney's sausage, just as shards of glass and pieces of the old decoration rained down on them. Unfortunately, she didn't bite it off, but it was enough to make Barney scream almost as loudly as she did that I stood there, frozen, unable to move. Barney was doubled over and Stephanie stared at me in shock, brushing shards of glass off herself. "This isn't what it looks like," she screamed. "Stephanie, is this the best you've got? Do you have an explanation for why you're deep-throating the sausage of my old friend Barney?" "Well, not that deep, for obvious reasons," I added, glaring in Barney's direction. With that, I turned and gathered Humphrey, his bedding, and everything else. I was taking him to the vet. He was all that mattered. Now, the vet turned out to be excellent, and despite the late hour, we didn't have to wait. Of course, we didn't know exactly what Humphrey had been given, but judging by everything, he seemed to be fine, apart from being in a deep sleep. As a precaution, we decided he should stay overnight at the vet, so they could monitor him and ensure there were no lingering effects when he woke up. Poor little guy that I stormed into the house and found Stephanie sitting alone in the kitchen. "Your boyfriend's gone. How too bad he didn't take you with him, because I don't need you anymore. Now get out of my sight." "Where's Humphrey?" she asked, swallowing hard. "Thanks to you, I had to leave him with the vets. They're keeping him under observation. If anything happens to him, you won't like my reaction. It'll be much worse than a divorce, trust me." "Divorce? I don't want a divorce. We can get through this. It was just a mistake. We can survive this." "No, we really can't. I don't give second chances, not even to you." With those words, I started packing a suitcase. "Where are you going?" Stephanie shouted. "You're not even giving me a chance to explain." "What kind of explanation could you possibly have, Stephanie? Or should I call you Steph, like all your boyfriends do?" "I don't have boyfriends. He's not my boyfriend. If you'd just let me explain, you'd owe me an apology." "I don't owe you anything. I'm going to sleep at a hotel. You'd better be at your mom's place when I get back from work tomorrow. Unless, of course, you're planning to move in with Barney." I slammed the door so hard it rattled in its frame. As I headed to my car, Barney appeared. "Where are you going?" "I'm staying at the hotel until that cheating girl moves out. You can have her if you want. I don't need her. I don't want her. That's not the point. I just wanted you to believe me about what she really is. Don't go to a hotel. Come stay at my place. This is all my fault. Let me make it up to you. I was just trying to protect a friend." "Friend," I grinned bitterly. "Funny, but that didn't stop you from doing what you did once you found out, did it?" "Well, she was very persistent, and it was the best way to prove it to you. Nothing else would have worked." "Well, I'm glad it worked out for you. I know what will help me right now." I placed the suitcase on the back seat of the car and punched it with all my strength. It had been a long time since I'd hit anyone, and I'd forgotten how much it hurt, but the pain was worth it. He went down after a single blow. He was lucky I didn't run him over, the slimy bastard. That's for Humphrey. Wait until you see what's coming for you for destroying my marriage and my life. I left him lying on the road. As I backed out of the garage, I caught a glimpse of Stephanie in the rearview mirror. I expected her to rush to Barney, but instead she pulled the curtain shut that morning. The first thing I did was check with the vet, and they told me I could pick up Humphrey at lunchtime with no lasting effects. I brought him to work, where he settled under my desk. Sometimes being the boss has its perks, but other times it means working late into the night. Is that why Stephanie gave in to Barney? Had I neglected her? She knew I was building the business for our future. In reality, we spend a lot of time together, quality time. That's why I was so devastated. That's why I lay awake last night in a hotel, heartbroken and unable to sleep. That evening, when Humphrey and I came back home, Stephanie wasn't there. She had left a short note. "I'm at my mom's, waiting for you to be ready to talk." I crumpled it up and threw it in the trash. She'd be waiting for that conversation for a long time. Confused by the situation, I realized I needed friends. I called Oliver and told him what had happened. He's the last of us to get married, to Connor. He promised to spread the word to the others. I think he was almost as shocked as I was. Bloody Barney. What was she even thinking? Later, after I'd had a few glasses of whiskey, the rest of our crew started calling or sending texts. An interesting conversation happened with Callum. He lived closest to me, and we often hung out as a foursome with him and his wife, Laura. "Listen, I know this won't change anything for you, but I think you should talk to Stephanie." She spoke with Laura. I don't know what it was about, but Laura says there's more to this story. She also said that Stephanie might be the dumbest woman to ever walk the earth. She's furious at you, but according to her, there's something deeper going on here. All she told me was that this wasn't an affair, whatever that means. I'm not thrilled that she has more to say, but Laura insists you need to hear it from Stephanie in person first. We were interrupted by a knock at the door. I couldn't believe my eyes when I opened it to see Barney sporting 2 black eyes and an obviously broken nose. I just wanted to say I didn't tell the police what you did to me. I understand you were upset and why you blamed me, so I'm not going to report it. I still want us to be friends. I know we've lost touch, but there was a time when we cared about each other. Are you serious? I could never be friends with you after what you did? You make me sick. I'll never be able to get the image of the 2 of you out of my head. Now do yourself a favor and get out of here before I find another part of your body to break. He flinched and stepped back, but he didn't leave. I'll give you time, but I want you to know I'm here for you when you calm down. I'll always be your friend. I'll always care about you. As I shut the door, I started to seriously think that he might have some kind of mental problem. A week passed without any word from Stephanie, so I went to see a lawyer to find out what the divorce would look like. The proposal wasn't great, but it was something I could afford. Thankfully, my business wouldn't be affected since it would remain entirely mine due to the way it's structured. However, Stephanie would receive a significant portion of the profits as alimony unless I could prove she earns more than I do. From that moment on, I decided not to take on any extra work. What's the point? On Friday evening, my mother-in-law, Maureen, called. I'd always gotten along with her and called her mom, especially since my own parents had been out of my life for so long. They're not dead, but they might as well be. They live in Spain and are too wrapped up in their social life to think about their only son. I've always been especially close to Maureen. Hello, my dear. I've been worried about you. Stephanie told me I shouldn't bother you, but I can't stop worrying. Are you eating? Are you not drinking too much, are you? Do you need me to come over? I can make you some lasagna. I know it's always been your favorite. The simple kindness, love, and care she accidentally showed me were too much, and I broke down, sobbing. Oh, my poor dear boy. I'm on my way. When she arrived, she let herself into the house with the spare key. I hadn't gotten around to changing the locks yet. Before long, I was in her arms, letting her rock and soothe me as if I were a child who had fallen off his bike and scraped his knee. My silly girl, how could she do this to you? But I've always loved you like my own. I swear I could have hit her. I really could have. How can she be so cruel? I asked. I thought she loved me as much as I loved her. I thought we'd be having kids soon. I know she does, sweetheart, and she really does love you. If she didn't, she wouldn't have spent the whole week in my arms crying her eyes out. As for cruelty, she's not cruel. Yes, she acted foolishly, but she wasn't cruel. How can you say that? That's similar to what Laura told Colum, because she told the truth only to Laura and me, what happened and why she did it. That's why. I'm not defending her, and she knows that. She's a damn fool. But I know she loves you and only you. You need to talk to her, and the sooner the better. She needs to tell you everything herself. With that, she heated up the lasagna and made me drink plenty of water. No more drinking until this is sorted out. Not drinking until the divorce is finalized will take a while, I muttered. Let's not rush things. It might not come to that, Maureen said softly. But even if it does, you won't divorce me, will you? I'll still be here for you. I'll still be your second mom. I'll let Stephanie know you'll be ready to talk to her at 10 in the morning. She left quickly before I could argue. I slept better than I had in days, but I still woke up very early, pacing the house as I prepared for the confrontation I dreaded yet knew had to happen. When I saw Stephanie, my heart pounded in my throat. She looked even worse than I did. Her hair was unkempt and her face looked lifeless despite her obvious effort with makeup. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please just let me talk to you. I'll tell you what happened, and then I'll leave. You don't even have to say anything. I don't expect anything, but you need to know the truth. I nodded at that moment. I had nothing to say. The floor was hers. I met Barney about a month ago when he came into the dealership. He started chatting with me, then noticed my last name. He asked if I was your wife, and I said yes. He got really upset and started talking about how close he used to be with your crew and how you all just shut him out. He said he never understood why. He talked about how much he missed all of you, especially you. He spoke about you all so fondly. I felt so sorry for him. It was clear that you all meant so much more to him than he did to you. You've mentioned him a few times and I've seen pictures, but I couldn't help feeling bad for him. It was near the end of the workday, and you'd already told me you'd be working late. So when he suggested grabbing a quick drink, what was the harm? I just have a drink with your old friend before heading home. I even thought he might share some of your old secrets that I could tease you about later. Well, he turned out to be a good conversationalist, but a bit strange. He stares a lot, doesn't he? I didn't like that, but he was polite enough. I only had 1 glass of wine. That's all I remember about the first time. I woke up in his hotel bed and it was obvious what had happened. I tried to get up, go to the police, and get tested to prove he'd drugged me with something illegal. But then he came back into the room, smiling. You seem to enjoy it. Listen to this, he said, playing an audio recording from a video he'd made. My voice actually sounded like I was enjoying it, begging for more. It was horrifying. Who would believe me now? How could anyone believe me? I realize I've been caught in a predator's trap. You could have told me and I would have gone to the police with you. I know, but you'd never look at me the same way again. There would always be doubts. Hell, at that point, I was even doubting myself. I still could have gone to the police. I had a chance while the drugs were probably still in my system. But then he played his trump card. And what would that be? He didn't just do this to me. He did it to you too. Of course he did it to me. If he hurt you, then he hurt me as well. No, please let me explain. When you were on that vacation, he did the same thing to you. He drugged you, slept with you, recorded videos, and took pictures. He showed them to me. Remember how you said that during that trip you had the worst hangover of your life? Well, he clearly refined his drug cocktail before using it on me. You didn't look like you were enjoying it. You looked like a zombie, but you were definitely participating. At that moment, I ran to the sink and lost my breakfast again. I didn't push her away when she gently rubbed my back. And you saw it? Yes, and I knew you had no idea. I didn't want you to know about him, about us. So, he really got us both, didn't he? When he said you'd never find out if I met him a few more times while he was here, it seemed like a small price to pay for your peace of mind. He'd already done something to me, to us, and it will haunt me forever. But I thought I could still protect you. He promised I'd get all the videos and photos and you'd never have to know. And you believed him. Of course not, but I didn't have many options, did I? That's not true. You had a choice. I'd rather have known than let you do what you did, than have to imagine you having sex with him. I didn't think he'd tell you. I believe that. He seemed oddly obsessed with you and just wanted to be your friend. So my friend did me, and 10 years later he did my wife. How many times? Over the past few weeks he met with me a couple of times a week, so 6 times in total, and each time he drugged you. No, just the first time. For some reason that feels even worse. You actually remember all the other times with him? Yes, but it felt like it was happening to someone else, like an out-of-body experience. And always here in our house. After the first time, yes, but never in our bed. I couldn't do that to you. He did it in the living room, on the rug. I think part of the thrill for him was doing it here, knowing you'd never find out. And what about Humphrey? Well, the first time you went after him. So after that, Barney started giving him a sedative. He promised it wouldn't hurt him. And it didn't, right? No, it didn't. But you seem to trust the words of your abuser far more than you trust your husband. You're in shock, but terrible shock. But I hope that, in time, we can move past this. Can't you see that I did this for us, for you? I'll go back to my mom's. Right now, I'm not exactly her favorite person either. I'll be here when you're ready to talk. Just remember how much I love you. Don't let him win. He did this to destroy us, didn't he? Why else would he tell you? I don't know what his plans are, but don't let them work. Please. She kissed me on the cheek and as she left, gave Humphrey a pat. She took a piece of my heart with her. I loved her, but I didn't know if I could get through this. She hadn't shared a piece of the puzzle with me, and that was something I hadn't shared with her either. That afternoon, the whole crew gathered: Callum, Oliver, James, and Harry. Some came from across the country, dropping everything to be there for me, just like true friends do. Over a few pints of beer, I told them what Stephanie had revealed to me. They were just as horrified as I was, especially about what had happened during our group vacation. That's strange, Callum said. He never really fit into our group. We ended up together in that apartment. We were never unkind to him. We tried our best, but he just didn't fit in. Though I understand what Stephanie meant, he was never interested in fitting into our lives. What he really cared about was becoming your friend. I shuddered as I realized what he had wanted from me. But what did he hope to gain by driving Stephanie and me apart? Who knows, Oliver said, but I can't help thinking this is more about you than it is about Stephanie. What, just because we lost touch? No, Oliver replied, I think it's more than that. Remember how he wanted to be the good guy in all this? He didn't want you to be alone. He wanted to be there for you. So, Harry said, he destroys your marriage, steps in as the supportive friend, and then what? You discover your homosexuality, fall in love, and ride off into the sunset together. Who knows what that little sick bastard was playing at? Whatever it was, it's not going to end well for him, James growled. Sorry, Oliver said, but this particular brotherhood already has a gay member, me. Thank you very much. We don't need anyone else. Oliver, I think we need your Connor to handle this. Can he come over? Callum asked. He's already here, mate, waiting at the hotel. He didn't want to intrude. Well, call him then. He's as much a part of us now as you are since you married him, I said. He'll be thrilled to hear about this. You're out of ideas and I think we need his help. As soon as Connor arrived, we came up with a plan. I knew what I was going to do about Barney. And I also decided what I was going to do about Stephanie. That evening we invited Barney to come over. I think he assumed he'd be meeting me alone. His face looked a bit better, but he was clearly surprised to see the rest of the crew there. The whole old gang back together again, just like the good old days. I was hoping it would just be you and me, he said, staring intently at me. I suppose we have some things to discuss, don't we? Everything we need to discuss we can do together as friends, can't we? I offered him a drink, and he downed it in one gulp. He was clearly nervous about being watched by so many people. So I began. Stephanie told me her version of the story. Perhaps you'd like to share yours. I've already said. She came on to me, claiming she was divorced, and asked if I wanted to have some fun. As soon as I realized you were her husband, I came to you to tell the truth. You know I'd never hurt you. You mean too much to me, you always have. Enough to drug me and take advantage of me. I don't understand what you're talking about. Oh, I think you do. On that vacation when I had the worst hangover of my life. That wasn't just the alcohol, was it? That was the aftermath of the crap you gave me. That was a long time ago. And I admit we had sex at that party. You asked me not to tell anyone, but you know what happened. And you enjoyed it. Back then you loved me. Loved you. I could barely tolerate you. Now I hate you with every fiber of my being, believe me. Loved you. I didn't even know it happened, you're just upset. I know you don't mean that. I knew you were a bit out of it, so I needed to help you relax. I knew that if I could get you to relax, you'd show your true feelings and enjoy yourself. That's exactly what happened. That night being in your arms was the happiest night of my life. I've replayed it over and over. I know you have too. I just sat there in stunned silence. Barney was clearly suffering from some deep psychosis. He imagined some kind of romantic relationship with me that I didn't even know existed. So what was the plan, Barney, old pal? Colum asked, speaking slowly, trying to mask the horror creeping into his voice. I needed him. To leave Stephanie. This is all her fault. She got in my way. She stole him from me. Don't you understand? I think I do, Harry said. And then you could play the hero, exposing her as an adulteress. You expected me to forgive you, but not her. Well, I knew you truly loved me, not her. I knew my involvement was risky. I knew it would hurt you. I knew you'd be jealous when you saw me with her. But once you realized it freed you to be with me, you'd understand it was all worth it. He's completely lost his mind, Oliver muttered. And yet you still had to drug her with some kind of crap, just like you did to me. Only the first time. I hate to say it, but she really got into it without any extra encouragement, Barney said, glancing nervously at me as he noticed all our old friends clenching their fists. I'm not lying. She couldn't get enough a couple of times. She even texted me asking to meet. I had to do it, but I didn't enjoy it. It was just a means to an end. I only wanted you. I've always only wanted you. Silence fell over the room. I don't believe Stephanie could do something like that, Harry said. I have her texts. I'll show you, Barney replied, handing me his phone. There it all was, her requests and her desire to see him. After that first time, there was no coercion. She was enjoying their illicit affair clearly far more than he was. You know, Callum said, there's a term for this. I think it's called trauma bonding. You don't seem shocked by what Barney just said, Oliver said, looking at me. No, I replied. Remember, I saw it with my own eyes. I've been married to her for years and I know what she looks like when she's enjoying something. I knew she was enjoying it being with him. I don't want to lie about that, Barney said. I've been honest with you. That has to count for something, right? Well, I said, it'll definitely count in court, won't it, Connor? I called out and Connor stepped out of the kitchen. You're not familiar with my husband, Connor, are you, Barney? Oliver said. Detective Inspector Connor O'Brien, you heard everything I asked Connor. Yes, I got it all, he replied, turning to Barney and reading him his rights. No, you can't. Don't let him take me. We're supposed to be together. I did this for you. Funny. Stephanie said the same thing, I murmured, feeling the comforting embrace of my remaining friends around me. You know, Oliver said you and Stephanie were both victims of Barney. Yes, we were victims, but, despite her protests, maybe she was used the first time, but she went back for more. She begged for it. You saw the texts? Yes, but even if that's true, no, she should have come to me, trusted me. Instead, she found a way to have some fun and justify it. You want to know what I saw when I walked in on them? Don't you? The final piece of the puzzle. The others nodded. While she was pleasuring him, she was also pleasuring herself. She enjoyed it. There was no coercion. Maybe she was just trying to make the best of a terrible situation, Callum suggested. Maybe. But would you forgive Laura if you saw her enjoying it while another man was with her? Could you ever come to terms with her begging him for another meeting to do it again? No, Colum admitted. I don't think I could. So what now? Harry asked. Are you going to let him win? Let him break you two apart. Oh, Harry, we're all losers here. There are no winners in this. Maybe I was wrong to throw in the towel so quickly, but I knew there was no going back. Yes, I knew she had been manipulated at first, that we had both been used, but that didn't change what came after. She went back to him, called me a jerk, and I couldn't forget that. I couldn't forget the texts, the lies, the sight of her seeming to enjoy herself with him. No, that wasn't something I could live with. Life and love shouldn't be this complicated, at least not in my life. The only way forward for me was divorce. Barney was arrested, and they found a kit he used for coercion. They also found videos and photos. The thought of someone seeing me being exploited makes me sick, but the professionals handled it. I didn't want to see it myself. They just told me what was there. I had no memory of it and was endlessly grateful for that. In my mind, it never happened, and I think that's for the best. Barney was deemed too mentally ill to stand trial. He's in a secure facility, and I doubt he'll ever recover enough to be released. He's trapped in a hell of his own making. His obsession with me persists. I've been told he cries about me every night. Maureen says Stephanie cries about me too. She cries over what she's lost. She confessed to her mother that she started enjoying her illicit encounters with Barney. She didn't like him, but she enjoyed playing the role of an adulteress with him. It was a part of her personality she had never dared to explore with me. She didn't even know she wanted it. She found that submitting to Barney excited her, even though she didn't find him attractive. The fact that she convinced herself it was acceptable because she was doing it for me still makes me sick. Maybe that was always part of her. She's been seeing a therapist to work through it, but she still clings to the idea that we'll get back together someday. Since the divorce, I've been living a peaceful life. Humphrey and I are doing well, and one day I'll find love again. It will happen, and I need to do it for myself. Thank you for listening until the end. See you in the next episode of English Epics. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Goodbye.